Thank you so much for choosing to listen to Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. I'm Kristen Dees, the founder of Catalyst Consulting, a business consulting agency that is passionate about helping small businesses thrive. The goal of this podcast is to connect entrepreneurs with experts in a variety of industries that support small business owners in order to provide you with helpful tips, resources, and some entrepreneurship inspiration. Welcome to this episode of Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. My guest today is Randy Crabtree, a numbers wizard, one of those people that does accounting on purpose. So, because the world does need all kinds, right, Randy?
Yeah, they do. And before that, I'll just correct you. I do not like accounting. I do taxes, and people put those two together. And I'm not saying you. They put them together. Mm-hmm. Taxes is my thing. Accounting, I'll let other people do.
Oh, see, and that's funny too, because I feel like I talk to people who are the opposite. They're like, I do not do taxes. Yeah. I hate taxes. So my apologies. Thank you for the correction.
That's no problem.
But yeah, thanks for joining me. I am super excited. Like I said, I've only had one other CPA type accounting person on here, and we did not talk about tax stuff. So this will be super helpful for people, I think. So, but yeah, so tell us a little bit about you as a human being.
A human
Who are
being.
you?
Well, so you've already determined I am human. So I guess we're past true. That. All right.
Been validated.
Nice. Right. So we don't have to click the I am not a robot button on this or anything. Mm-mm. All right. Good.
No CAPTCHA.
See, I didn't even know what that was called. Look at you. On
You're
top
welcome.
Of things here. So a little about me. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. This is my non-work stuff. I live in the suburbs of Chicago. Family. My wife and I have 2 adult sons. My wife and I celebrated 35 years of marriage in the fall. Pretty excited about that. She and I got to spend January and February not in Chicago, getting out and spending 2 months in the warmth, working remote, which is a thing we've all learned that we can work from anywhere the last 2 months, at least in certain professions. So besides the family, I am a craft beer enthusiast. That's an interesting thing. And I'm also a stroke survivor.
Oh, yes, that's right. You said, was that like 8 years ago or something? Or
it is 8 years ago. You have it. Yep.
Every now and again, this old steel trap works with useful things.
Well, you know CAPTCHA. And I said, did I say that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Nice.
Yep. What's your favorite kind of craft beer? Do you have a particular, I don't know what they call them, styles?
Flavors? Yes, it's styles. So it goes almost somewhat based on the time of year, but I've been, like probably every craft beer person, IPAs have been a big thing for a long time. I go in and out of them. Summer, it's going to be just more craft lagers and, but right now, really good. And I spent some time in California, and there's some really good IPAs out there that I had this winter while we were working remote. IPA probably was what I crave the most right now.
Yeah. That makes sense. A fun fact for me is I'm actually allergic to hops. Okay. So very unpleasant side effects.
Yes.
And so I figured that out. I lived in Bend, Oregon, in Central Oregon in 2006 when craft beer was becoming like a huge thing. Right. So I would just randomly get sick. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then somebody put it together. They're like, you're allergic to hops. And I was like, well, that's disappointing.
That is disappointing.
So yeah, there you go.
That is a thing though. I've heard it before. In Bend, Oregon, you were at one of the, I don't know if you'd say birthplaces, but of the new craft beer a scene, that was one of the birthplaces. A lot of craft breweries out there. Yep.
Yeah, they had like 10 in at a time when it was not quite a thing yet. It was nuts. Yeah. So, and now they have more, but yeah. So there you go. You can be allergic to hops and it's not good.
No, it's not.
I was like, I guess I just drink wine then. Oh no. What's a fun fact about you?
Well, I guess we'll stay on the beer theme.
Sure.
I actually am, besides what I do with what we're going to talk about tax-wise a little bit today, I am a partner in a craft beer bar in Chicago. It's a craft beer bar / liquor store. And it's called the Beer Temple. If anybody's in Chicago, let me know. I'll buy you a beer.
Nice.
How many beers did I just buy? You've got like a million listeners.
Yeah,
right?
I got a million. Yep. All besides my mom. Yep.
But the Beer Temple, is often listed as one of the best craft beer bars actually, we were just listed as the 14th best craft beer bar in the world. Actually, I like to say the galaxy, but at least the world. And our liquor store portion is always listed as one of the top in the country, almost always top in Illinois. And so it's based on the employees that work there and my partner. They're all experts in beer. And so it's kind of a lot of fun to ride on their coattails and enjoy the accolades we receive.
Nice. Yeah. And have a cool place to just go drink beer whenever you want.
Well, that's true. That too.
Yeah. No, that's cool. What do you do on the work side of things? How do you provide support for business owners?
This is all I do. I just talk to people
Yeah.
and we have a good time.
Same.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
same.
right, which is nice.
Yeah.
So business wise, I mean, our business is TriMerit.
Mhm.
That's the name of our business. Actually, our 15-year anniversary is just around the corner here. So pretty excited about that. What we do is we do specialty tax work. We support taxpayers around the country with just 6 different aspects of the tax code. And so we're really, really niche, really specific, specialized areas that we deal with. So that's what the business is.
Nice. Very cool. How long have you been doing tax related stuff?
So
Is it 15 years or?
No, so I am a CPA and I graduated college with computer science, which that's all passed me by now. I know nothing. I could turn on my computer, which is nice, but
Yeah.
I started with computer science and then realized that it probably wasn't the place for me, and so went back to school after I was out for about 2 years and got enough classes under my belt to sit for the CPA exam. So that started in 1988. So I am, almost 34 years
Mhm.
into working in taxes at some level at this point.
And how did you end up where you're at now with TriMerit and being a business partner there?
Yeah, so that's that could be a long story. We'll make it a fairly short story. We can expand if you want. Bottom line is I was managing partner of a CPA firm in the Chicago suburbs. 3 years after I, made this change from computer science to accounting and tax, but tax for the most part. I was doing accounting back then as well. I had decided I wanted to start my own firm, which is pretty young in your career to start your own firm. But I've always been an entrepreneur. So started my own firm, ran that, built that up, and kind of got burnt out. And not kind of, I did get burnt out on tax season. Tax seasons are crazy, and
Oh yeah.
for any CPAs that may be listening, I feel your pain. You've been through. You're in year number 3 of a nonstop tax season right now.
Yes.
So
yeah. Never ending change.
Yep. So sorry about that. But that's so I built this firm, and then in 06, decided that I was honestly, as a side note, we could tell the kids were kind of getting a little bit cranky during tax season. I'm like, okay, that's not good. I'm away too much. I need to do something different. And so in 06, I merged my firm in with another. I left when the merger happened. Took a little bit of time off and then realized at whatever age I was then, early 40s, that I probably can't retire because I don't have any money.
Sure.
So it was time to figure out what was next, and we started TriMerit. So I started TriMerit May 7th of 2007, and so again, 15 years right now. So I started it then, and we just grew over the years, and there's 5 partners in the firm now. We have 50 people. We cover the entire country, and it's just been a heck of a fun ride.
No, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we kind of talked about when we chatted before about kind of finding what you like to do and what your strengths are throughout that process, which I think is kind of an important piece of the entrepreneurship journey.
It definitely is.
I feel like if you're not constantly trying to do more of the things you love and less of the things you hate, then like, what's the point? You might as well just go work for someone else again.
You and I are the same person. I agree
Yes.
completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you kind of work through that process?
Again, I'm going to, long story truncate.
Sure. Yeah, no, we're good.
But sorry, I keep saying that. It's just that to me, there's just so much I could say on that subject, because there's a ton out there that really is passionate to me to discuss. Because I think if I can share something that helps somebody,
yeah,
I feel great about that. So just as a side note, based on what you're saying there, when I started TriMerit, my partner, who is now the managing partner, came in 3 months after I did. We knew he was going to come in, but 3 months after we started TriMerit, I, was trying to do all this stuff and realized, okay, this is going to work. Andy, probably time, why don't you quit your job and come in here full time too? But when we started it, just by default, I became managing partner of the firm. Really, we never even discussed it. It was just, hey, I came out of public accounting. I was managing partner of this public accounting firm. Obviously, I should be managing partner of TriMerit now.
Yeah.
Which looking back was probably the wrong decision. But so that happened. The change that occurred, the reason I'm not managing partner anymore, and why that whole happened is that this long kind of journey starting with, and we mentioned I was a stroke survivor, starting with my stroke, which was 8 years ago. So that was halfway into our business. And we had grown a nice firm at that point, but we are significantly bigger today than we were at that point. But we had grown a nice firm. Had stroke happen, not to dig deep into that, but my mind was messed up for 5 years, not physically, just mentally messed up for 5 years. And, just trying to figure out what happened, all this type of stuff. But in that change, I didn't realize that I probably was hurting the business, or I was holding us back, just because I didn't give my full attention to everything. And so Andy had, came to me and said, hey, I'd like to take over certain aspects. And I kind of, I want to take over managing the sales team. I'm like, Andy's an engineer. I'm a CPA. Neither of us really had sales experience, but I was managing the sales team since the beginning, I guess. I'm like, well, you're an engineer. You don't know anything about sales. But as you and I talked at the beginning, he's a process person. He knows just putting tools and processes in place. So, after me fighting that a little bit, he took over that role and did a decent job, better than I did on that. And then after a little bit of time, it was like, okay, it was time for me not to be managing partner anymore. And he had been saying this for a while, that he wanted to start taking over that role. And I fought it a little bit. One, just thinking that was my identity.
Yeah.
Hey, if I'm not managing partner, am I nothing? What is it? Which, looking back, which is not the good way to look at this. I was going to say stupid way to look at it, which it was. So after a while, he took that over, and I still took another year or so to really get my mind around what was going on, just post-stroke and post-change. But now he started putting all these tools and processes and everything in place, which you are an expert at. He's an expert at. I have no clue on this stuff. And I just saw, wow, we're starting to really hum as a business. At the same time, I was trying to define what my role is. Maybe I'm not making this story short, but I was
I think it's good. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what my role was. And looking back, I was like, well, do a self-analysis. Look at yourself. What do you like to do? What really, you honestly didn't like the managing partner role. You really, if you look back, you didn't like that. That wasn't really what you liked. But what aspect of what you were working on did you like? Well, I loved going out and educating people. I loved going to talk about taxes. I know it sounds geeky, but I love going to talk about taxes, but from a standpoint where I can take these complex issues and make it easy for someone to understand. I love doing that. I love seeing people realize, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. So I started doing more of that, started doing more, pandemic wise, turned things into webinars, started doing my own podcast, started writing articles, created now a virtual conference where we educate CPAs. We had 325 people sign up the first year. I'm starting to do guest webinars where I'm having guest speakers come in and educate. So it's all around education. It's around being in front of the CPA, the tax preparer. And I just love doing that. And as the last 4 or 5 years have evolved in this, when this change happened with Andy and I and him taking over the managing partner role, I honestly didn't think, I was like, okay, I got to force myself to work like 3 more years, just have to do it. And now this is 5 years later. I can't imagine stopping. I'm just having so much fun. And that's why, looking at what you do, looking at what you enjoy, finding your passion and doing that, making it your job. Not everybody can do it immediately, but finding a point where you could at least incrementally get to that point, man, it's unbelievable. And so that's how we evolved into the business. Our roles evolved and how I do what I do now.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's such an important piece of it because it's like, you don't until it's later. Like that's how, because when I decided to start my own business, I was like, I don't want to do corporate life anymore. I don't want to work for someone else.
No.
But I was like, okay, so what can I do that people will pay me for? And also, what do I like to do? What am I good at? Because sometimes those are two different things, by the way. So like, you don't have to do things that you're good at if you don't like doing them. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the exercises I use with people, especially at the beginning when they're trying to figure out what to outsource or how they can, get rid of some of the stuff they hate. It's like, hey, so let's do a little grid here of like things you like, things you're good at, things you hate, things you're bad at,
Mhm.
and how do we kind of switch things up. But that's basically how I invented my job, is what I call it. I'm like, I just invented my
Well,
own job because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So,
well,
but
I
I
needed
also,
your spreadsheet with all those check marks. I would
yeah,
have done this a lot
yeah.
earlier in my career.
I know. Yep. Well, I wouldn't have known it then either. So, I mean, this is a fairly new thing. But yeah, so I'm definitely on board with that, and I think it's hard for people, especially when they're doing like the solopreneur thing, to try and kind of figure some of that stuff out or figure out where they can offload stuff. Because I like detail stuff. Like I'm good with details. I hate doing them, but I care
Mhm.
a lot about the details. So that's one of the things that like people are like, oh, she's super detail oriented. I'm like, like I care a lot about where they go, and I'm very good at the structure and the systems and processes, like you were
Right.
saying, but I
Yep.
don't like putting the things in. I don't like doing the like data entry type.
Yep.
Oh my
Yeah. Yeah.
God.
No,
It's
me neither. Yep.
can't do it. But some people love that. And that's
Yeah.
great. Then I can like look at the results of the stuff later. But yeah, no, I think it's a big part of the conversation. And sometimes I think people also feel like they're freaks because they're like, I should just be happy doing this because I get to sell custom signs or I get to do whatever the thing is that they love. But there's also a lot of really crappy
Right.
parts about running a business. So
No, there is. There is.
yeah, no, that's good. I think it's a fun, sometimes those like unexpected journeys too are the ones where you kind of learn the most too, where you're like fighting it a little bit and you're like, well,
Yeah.
is this
It,
actually important? I don't know. Yeah.
right. And then, like I said, that was my identity.
Yes.
It wasn't.
Hmm.
That's just a role. That's not my identity. My identity is really my identity is what I do now. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm probably oversaturated out in the market out, because I'm constantly places talking or
Yeah.
presenting. But I just love doing it, and not to sound like I got a big ego, but I'm really good at it. So
Yeah.
so it makes it fun, and people learn from it, and people hopefully get enjoyment from it because I try not to be boring. So I
Yeah.
try. We'll
No,
see.
that's good. Yeah, we'll
Yep.
see. I don't know, Randy.
Yeah, we'll see what the ratings are or
Yeah.
the comments after you post
Yeah.
this.
Maybe we should have loaded you up with some beer first.
Man, that guy's got a huge ego. Never have
Yeah.
him on the show again.
Yeah. Never again. No, that's so funny. But yeah, no, I think the identity piece is important too, because there's definitely been times in my life where it's like hard to like, because I've been a leader for basically my entire adult life. Like I started
Mhm.
managing people at a very young age, and it letting go of that to just basically be a solopreneur
Mhm.
was kind of a thing too, where I'm like, I've always just been in charge of people, but I did learn some things that I don't like doing stuff. I like the orchestrating. So when about a year into this, I was like, God, why am I so miserable? Like you're saying, like burnout.
Right.
I was like, I hate doing all the things that I keep telling people I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then I realized that it's because I was doing a lot of the stuff, like the details and
Yep. Yep.
setting up systems and
Yep, I agree
yeah,
completely. I'm at the point now, and not everybody can do this, but I'm at the point now where I'll say we can do this, but then someone else does it.
right. Yes.
And which is fine if as long as they like doing that, and and they're growing in their careers, and maybe some of it they'll realize they don't, and some of it they'll change and they'll modify, and as a leader too. And honestly, I tell people. And people tell me I'm wrong, but they tell me I'm not a leader. I'm not a manager of people. That's not what I'm going to
That's
do.
different.
But I love watching people in the business get enjoyment of what they're doing, but grow in their
Yeah.
roles. I've got two individuals. Sorry, we're going on a sidetrack here.
No,
but
no, it's great.
I have two individuals within the firm that, and like I said, we're about 50 people now. At the time I hired them, they were both straight out of college. They're both in their early 30s now. They both are just one just had his 10-year anniversary at the business. The other one is next week, I think, his 10-year anniversary at the business. I just met them. They were after college working as trainers at the gym, Danny Anderson and Nick Pantaleo. Shout out, guys.
Shout out.
So they were as trainers at the gym I was going to. One was training me, the other was training my son. And both, I just saw their work ethic, what they were doing there, and their personalities, and the knowledge of what they were doing. And it was like they both were looking for jobs. And we had roles they could fill. And what the enjoyment I get is now 10 years later, they're leaders in the business. Nick is I don't think this is officially his title, but he's CFO of the business, but he's really jack of all trades. He gets involved in everything. In fact, he's starting to help me on the webinars I give. And it's just great to see this. And then Danny is the manager of our inside sales department. And so these guys, 10 years, I've get to watch them grow in this business and see them flourish and see them enjoy it. Man, as an old guy, that's fun.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Like I think the difference too, like you said, it's not being like a manager of people necessarily, but helping people get where they want to go. That's always one of my favorite things. Like, or helping people explore options that they didn't even know were a thing. It's like, well, you don't have to do this just because you think that this is the path that you have to take. You could also do this, kind of like what you're like. They're trainers at a gym. That's a very different career path than accounting and tax life and running a business. So yeah, no, it's awesome. Thanks for listening so far. I just wanted to stop and share one of my resources that I like to recommend to people. If you're looking for an invoicing system, FreshBooks is one of my go-to recommendations for people. It's pretty low cost. It's easy to start up. So for people that are just starting out with the need to invoice, it's a great resource to use upfront, and it can scale as your business grows as well. They also offer bookkeeping and accounting software and services as a part of their pricing structure too. If you're interested in checking it out, their link is bit.ly/catalyst_FreshBooks, and the link will be in the show notes, of course, for you, just in case. But it's a quick, easy, and intuitive system to use if you're needing invoicing to send to clients or customers. So to segue into tax things, I know it's going to be
tax. All right.
Serious. So we had talked about this, and I think this is a very important topic for people, is talking about tax credits and like what are some of the common ones that business owners don't know about. You were kind of mentioning some of the there was some COVID stuff, but there's also some other stuff that still exists,
right?
That we may be missing out on.
Yeah. And so thanks about asking that. But yes, tax credits and incentives, this is passion. So hey, I'm doing one of my passions, which is nice. But tax credits and incentives, it's just, we put money back into businesses, which is so fun. And especially the last 2 years with what businesses have been through. Now, the things there's 6 things that we work with. I mean, I can list them out, but employee retention credit, I just want to highlight that because that's something people still need to think about. There's a lot of misinformation going out on this credit. It's the most marketed credit in the history of the world, and probably the most misinformation. One of the misinformations that is out there is, hey, this is you got a week to apply for this and it's gone. There's still years to look at this. So there's no, even though it was a COVID response credit, it's still out there. So companies need to look at it. But some of the other things that were pre-COVID and still are out there, and just real quick, work opportunity tax credit. I love this one because it's right now, it's one of the qualifications, and there's multiple qualifications, but one of it is it's a new hire credit. If I hire somebody new that's been unemployed for 6 months, I have a potential credit. There's been a lot of people unemployed for 6 months that have gone back into the workforce and are right now. That's a credit that's available that a lot of companies probably aren't thinking about. Mm-hmm. And so I like that one. The other one I like, just because of where we've been, well, I like them all, but the other one I like because of what's going on right now, is the R&D tax credit. And the R&D tax credit, you think of it and you go, okay, well, I'm not a pharmaceutical. I don't have white lab coats. I'm not sitting in the clean room. I don't qualify for that. This is a lot easier to qualify than you think. Now, I'm not going to promise this to everybody, because there are people out there that say everybody qualifies for ERC, everybody qualifies for R&D. That is not far from the truth. But manufacturers are a big user of this. Software developers are a big user. But the one thing that I'm seeing these days is every business is getting more technology centric, and if you're doing any kind of programming within your business, if Catalyst Consulting has 5 different systems, and you develop some software package to make them all talk to each other, that software package to make them all talk to each other consists of R&D, and that you could turn into a credit. So we mentioned my bar at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Our bar. I'm a small portion of it. Our bar. We have created this really robust online store for buying beer and spirits and wine and everything, shipping or picking up or whatever. And to do this, it included software development. And it included having the POS system talk to the inventory system, talk to the QuickBooks, talk to the shipping system, talk to FedEx, and all those had to talk to each other. And so we had to create software to put all those modules together. That's software creation is R&D. Our bar, which you never would think is taking a research and development tax credit, is taking a research and development tax credit. So that's why that one's pretty interesting, especially with COVID and everybody had to get more tech centric. There's potential of hidden credits out there.
No,
I
that
go on a
makes
lot
sense.
more, but those are the key ones I'm really excited about right now.
Yeah, no, that you're super excited about it. It's great. Yeah, because I think there's so many people that don't know, and it kind of leads into one of my next questions too, is finding an accountant / tax partner who is paying attention to all that stuff, because I know I've had some experiences with this, and a lot of people I think feel like accountants or tax people are too expensive, or like they feel like it's an unapproachable, almost like an attorney, kind of like they feel like it's something that they just can't do, like they're not cool enough for it.
Yep.
But how does somebody find a tax partner? Because to me, that is the important piece, is like someone who's looking out for me and my business and is keeping track of me as my business changes and evolves, and is like, oh, hey, like, did you have any of this stuff happen? Because I feel like a lot of people just get their taxes done and then that's it, and there's no other.
No. You are completely right. You want to find a tax preparer, a CPA. I use CPA. I use it because I am one, but I'll say it generically. You can be a tax advisor, an enrolled agent. You could be whatever it is, whoever is helping you with your tax and accounting. They obviously, it's money going out. Grow a business without having the financial knowledge, and that's what they're there to do. And they're not there to be you don't want to find a CPA. You don't want to find, I'm going to use CPA that's going to be a reporter. Basically, they just report what happened. Okay, give me your bank statements, I'll do your accounting, and here's what happened, and now you owe taxes because of this. You want someone that's going to be proactive working with you. They're going to be an advisor. They're going to be somebody that affects the tax return, affects the growth of the business on a positive standpoint. So you want that. You want the advisor, not the reporter. That's for me. And then what you want to go further. If you are starting a business that is a restaurant, you don't want a CPA that specializes in trucking businesses. You want to find somebody that knows your industry, because if they know your industry, every industry is different from a tax standpoint, accounting standpoint, things are different. And so find somebody that has that niche. And right now in accounting in general, niche is becoming huge. If it's just an individual, person, all right, here's my sole proprietor CPA, and their niche is they deal with craft breweries. Okay, I know if I'm starting a craft brewery, I want to go to that CPA because they're going to know what they're talking about, especially now if I see them, let's say out on social media, giving advice, linking me to other areas of things that I need to know about being a craft brewery. They just wrote an article about, adding a mobile canning to your brewery. I mean, so all these things. So find the CPA that not only is the advisor, not the reporter, but also knows the niche that you got into. I think that's extremely important. When I was in public accounting, when I built my firm, I was a generalist, which is great. You could be a generalist, which means I was working with clients in all different industries. When I became a specialist, now my niche is specialty tax, not a special industry, but specialty tax. I look back, I go, man, I can't even imagine going back to be a generalist. It just so I can help people that fit into this niche because I have this knowledge. And so when you're searching for somebody, find someone that has that knowledge that's going to help your business.
That makes sense. Yeah. Cause I think there's so many different little nuances. It's one of the things that I like about what I do is that I maintain generalist status, but it's because I like to learn new things. So this is one of those things about figuring out what you like.
So you're generalist status, but you are a specialist in what you do. So you are a niche in the services you offer. So but you can do what you do for different industries.
Yeah, and exactly.
I think that for you, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, it's like if you need someone, and sometimes I will help with this too, where if we need a marketing expert, because I know enough to be dangerous in a lot of different areas, especially from just being an entrepreneur myself for so long. I know a lot of things, but I can also connect people with experts because I speak the language. So I can help them find a tax expert or help them find a website designer or whatever the thing is, someone that's in that specific industry. But no, that totally makes sense too, because there's just like different little nuances. Like I essentially run an online business. Like most of my clients are remote and most of what I do outside of that is remote. So finding somebody that understands the different little things that are weird about that. And then how do I set myself up? Or even just thinking about like, hey, there's these potential, like you said, the R&D tax credit is like, that actually makes me go, oh, that would be an interesting thing. Cause I complain all the time about how I cannot find the right CRM that works the way that I want it to. And I can't find the right things to integrate all the different things. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I've always said someday I want to like pay somebody to just make me the system that I want. I'm like, hey, tax credit.
You got it.
But I mean, it's not like I would just know that if you hadn't been here today. So
that's why my specialty
why
helps you business.
Yeah.
Your specialty helps businesses a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's super helpful. So finding somebody that has experience. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast so far. I just wanted to drop in and recommend a bookkeeping resource, bookkeeping and accounting resource, if you're into that sort of thing. Quickbooks is one of my go-tos that I recommend to people. It's quick and easy to start up, and it integrates with a lot of other services, so it connects easily to your taxes each year and is easy to share with your accountant and bookkeeper. So QuickBooks is an old standby. It's been around for a long time, so it integrates with a lot of different other systems and resources. It's one that I recommend pretty regularly to people who are looking for bookkeeping resources. You can use my link. It's quickbooks.grsm.io/Catalyst Consulting. The link will also be in the show notes for the episode too. It's a lot of letters. You don't have to remember all of them. What are some things that you would say might be red flags for people? Like if they go talk to someone, they're possibly considering working with them as a accountant, or like, people come to you and they tell you horror stories, I'm sure, about their last accountant.
Yeah, well, the number one red flag is going to be, after the end of the year, just get me your stuff. I'll do your tax return. That's the reporter. That's the number one. Have someone say, okay, you're interviewing a new accountant. This is what we do. Quarterly, we're going to do this. Come November, we're going to do this whole analysis. We're going to see where you are tax wise, and then come December, we will finalize everything, and then in February, we know the tax situation already. We're not going to be surprised. We're not going to go in there and you're going to think, wow, I owe 30 grand. You didn't tell me that. No, we had that discussion ahead of time. So it really goes back to that advisor, not the reporter. Let's have them involved. Now, obviously, the more they're involved, there's more cost, but in the industry in general, pricing is changing, and you're getting people more of almost like a subscription pricing where, you're just going to pay one flat fee every month. And not everybody's doing this, and it's going to be all inclusive. So, I'm not going to be surprised with the bill at the end of the year. I know ahead of time. I can call my CPA at any time because I have this subscription. And there's a gentleman named Ron Baker who he'll talk about subscription pricing much better than me, but this is a big thing he'll push, and a lot of people are starting to go more towards that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've met with a few attorneys who are doing that kind of pricing now too, where it's like a monthly checkup, like almost kind of like a retainer, but like subscription essentially, where we take a look and make sure all your stuff is still where it needs to be. Make sure that, there's nothing's changed with the owner or the operating agreement, that kind of stuff. If you have any like employee issues that maybe you should be worried about in the future, etc.
It's all included in that monthly fee. I kind of like that.
I feel like it helps again with the whole like approachability of those resources, like attorneys or anybody in the financial industry too, like outside of even just taxes and stuff, like people think that that's such a unattainable resource, but
it's like you said at the beginning, people think it's too pricey or something. Well, now I know the price. I know this is what I'm paying, and I know anything I have, any question I have, anything I need, it's included in there. And now I can go and call call Sally or Bob, my accountant, and they're going to be there for me and help me. And they're going to be a partner of mine, which is nice.
Yeah. I feel like, cause it made me think of this when you were talking about like red flags and stuff. If the accountant or tax person, whoever, actually really anybody, that you're talking to is weirded out by the fact that you want to meet with them on a regularly scheduled basis, I think that's kind of problematic.
Yeah.
If they're like, why would we meet? And you're like, to talk about things, like, that seems weird.
No.
Because that's what, like, even with my bookkeeper, we meet once a month
Yeah.
and look at my stuff. Cause again, I care about the details. I just don't,
Well,
that's why I have a bookkeeper.
but that is extremely important, the bookkeeping end of things,
Yeah.
because you can't be surprised. You can't run a business being blind to the
Yeah.
financial end of things. And you could think you're doing great, and then at the end of the year you realize, oh man, I owe 100 grand on this bill I wasn't thinking about, and I only got 10 grand in my account. Why didn't I know this sooner
Yeah.
than this? So yeah, you have to stay on top of that.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point too. Even if you're outsourcing that stuff, which I highly recommend because
Yes.
it's so rare, unless you're the type of person that loves the putting the data in there and stuff, like don't do that to yourself. It's not that expensive to have someone manage your books for you, but like you have to take accountability for where your finances are at. Like that does not pass off that piece of responsibility. Like you still need to look at your numbers and know where you're at.
Yep.
Because like at the end of it, like I had somebody do my tax. This is the first time I've had like somebody actually prepare my taxes for me. And I did it for 2 years. Don't tell anyone, Randy. Which, by the way, you guys, if you, it's okay.
It's be secret.
Like, yeah, it happens. I didn't do my taxes last year because I was just there was so much going on. I was stressed out about it. I didn't want to deal with it. And then I have a new accountant who's great, and
Nice.
he did both years for me.
Well,
but
just kind of beep out so the million people
Yeah.
listening don't hear
Yeah.
that part. Okay.
but I do not recommend that strategy. Like 100% do not do that because it will always blow up. Oh God, I've talked
It's
to so
not
many people.
uncommon. So
It's not even close to uncommon. So many people that don't, because it's scary. People don't like to talk about money and stuff. But I was still prepared. Like I knew because I've been looking at my P&L the whole time. So he was like, "Hey, like it's not great," and I was like, "Oh, I mean, that's fine. Like I knew it's cool." But like a lot of times, I'm sure you're the ones that are having to be like, "Hey, so about that," like you said, where you're like, you owe them $100,000, and they're
Right.
like, that's a devastating amount of money to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's not good. You don't want to be
look at your
surprised by
stuff.
that.
Yes.
Yep.
No. Oh my God. So, yeah, if you get someone that doesn't want to talk about your stuff ever, I think that's a huge problem.
Agreed.
And like explain how things work, because like I happen to have experience in operations and P&L management, so I understand how all that stuff works, which is part of why I care so much. But you need to know that, like, you need to understand the difference of like where they're classing things for you, and when you spend money, where does it go and why, and can you get write-off stuff for the things anyway.
Right. And just what's the difference between a fixed asset and an expense? I mean,
Yes.
Hey, I just bought a $10,000 piece of equipment. Can I write this off all at once, or does this have to be depreciated over time? So just things like that. You think you have an expense, and it wasn't an expense. Although there's some certain rules that usually it will be an expense. But
vehicles is another thing too.
Yep.
Like how your vehicle is being used. Can
Yep.
your business pay for it? Should it pay for it? Should you just write it off? Can you write off the payments? Blah blah
that's
blah.
a big question.
There's like a whole I feel like is a whole masterclass on its own. But yeah, like you should be able to have those conversations, and like your accountant should be like your therapist. Like it should just like that should be the person that you can tell your dirty secrets to, and just be like, listen, I didn't file my taxes last year. And they're like, oh, it's okay, buddy. You're okay.
Yep. Well,
honestly,
when I was in public and I would sit at tax time and we talk taxes, I honestly felt like I would say the therapist, but it was like I was, the bartender behind the bar, and they're sitting on the other side and they're telling me all their troubles and everything. Mm-hmm. So that is you build this personal relationship, and that person thinks they could tell you everything, and they should be able to, because especially with taxes, you don't want to hide anything. IRS doesn't like that.
No. Like I said, it will always blow up in your face at some point. Yeah, it's like doctors. Like that's the person you're supposed to tell your weird stuff to. Yeah, one of my friends describes me as that. Sometimes I was trying to explain what I do. They're like, what is consulting? And I'm like, well, it's kind of an ethereal concept. Like no one really knows. But he's like, oh, so you're kind of like a business therapist. And I was like, yeah, basically. Like I just people tell me their troubles, and then I'm like, oh, you're fine. Here, let's do this in this order. And they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better, in a nutshell. So he's like, oh, nice. Anyway. So when it comes to running your own business, what advice would you give fellow entrepreneurs and business owners?
Well, it's probably tied in with some stuff we've probably said already. Is stick to your strengths. And part of that is just doing that self-evaluation, looking at what you're good at, and trying to do that. And then what you said, you don't have to do the things you don't like. Outsource. You can outsource just about everything. If let's say you're a startup business, just you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Outsource your bookkeeping like you are. I mean, outsource. It's honestly not that expensive. Outsource whatever you, if you're, go back to my restaurant example, which I never think I don't think I finished. If you're starting a restaurant, your passion's probably making this food, designing the menu, the designing recipes and all that. If you're starting it up, just concentrate on that stuff, because that's what's going to make you successful. Doing your own bookkeeping isn't going to make you successful. Like you said, you have to understand it, you have to look at it, but that's not going to make you successful. Your passion is going to make you successful. So just stick to the things you really like, and do whatever you can. I know there's expenses involved, but do whatever you can to get other people to do the things that are not as important to you.
Yeah. And sometimes it starts small too. I think like people, like there's a thing where it's like it has to be like a whole person full time, and it's like you can start progressively. Like you can add things here and there, and like I said, bookkeeper was one of the first things, and then I started adding some other things as I went, and makes it feel not quite so bad either to take it a little slow. But what let's see. Oh yeah, what resources do you wish you had known about at the beginning of your entrepreneur journey?
Wait, did I
It's
just
probably a
answer
giant
that?
list. Yeah.
The beginning of my entrepreneur journey started at age 16. So like I said before, I was, at 16, I started a window washing company. Is there things that I wish I would have known then? Probably not a lot. Probably charge people more because
Oh.
people they really aren't as price sensitive as you think. It's not uncommon. I mean, if you're not having people question your fees, you're not charging enough.
Yes.
And so that I think is good advice. Now it depends on what your industry. If it is food, back to food. I don't know why I'm all food today. I must be hungry. But if it is food, I mean, there is standards. You're usually marking up your food cost by X percentage and all that. So it's harder to charge more if you're a burger place and they're charging $8 for the burger 2 blocks down, and unless yours is so much better, it's probably hard to charge more than $8. But if you're a service industry or something,
Yeah.
what you're doing, not that the food's not valuable, it is, but your knowledge is valuable and people pay for that. So don't undervalue what you're doing. I think that's probably a key thing. And when I look back at the window washing, I probably was underpriced. We were, as 16-year-olds, and I was hiring friends, we were making a lot of money.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But it was probably worth more than I realized. And even that translated into my accounting profession. I probably wasn't charging enough when I was doing tax returns, 15 years ago. I seldom got people question the fees. I knew that. I knew I had to charge more, but I was like, yeah, but you know what? I like them. You can't. It's business. You're there to make money. They'll still like you if it costs 25% more or whatever the number is. And so I think just not undervaluing what you do is important.
I think that's huge. I was just talking about that with a buddy of mine. And he was saying he would just watched a YouTube or something. I don't know where he got it. I can't remember now because we talk about this stuff all the time. But he's like, you should get no's. If you're not getting any no's, then you are
right.
Nope, charge more. But like you said, so it's okay also to get a no. It's fine, but that's a whole nother therapy session.
Mentally, sometimes it hurts maybe, but it's okay.
It doesn't feel great, but it's okay. Right. But yeah, no, that's great. Any last thoughts? Oh yeah, I was gonna tell. How do people get in touch with you? How do they find you?
Yeah, so website is try-merit.com. So you can go to our website. There's a meet the team page or something like that. You can get my information. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Our marketing team is now putting me everywhere, so you'll start seeing me on TikTok and Instagram, and we've been increasing our Twitter presence, but I'm really not good at that. That's not a skill of mine. I'm pretty good at LinkedIn, but we have people in the company that do that. So pretty much I'll be on all the social, even I think there's Facebook page, but I don't know if we do much on that. But our website's really the best start because you can get my direct phone number there or my direct email as well.
Okay. Easy peasy. And I'll put all that stuff in the notes for the show too. So
great.
Any last thoughts before we head out?
No, I mean, I had a great time. I love talking this stuff. I love talking tax, but I just love talking business in general too. Not that I'm any expert, but if there's little things that people take something out of, great. And if they say, Randy, you're full of crap, then I'm full of crap. But at least you and I had a good time.
Yeah, we had a great time.
So I think that's important. The one thing, if we did talk tax, I'm not selling, I'm just saying, if you are a US based company and somebody's talking to you about the employee retention credit, because this is a giant soapbox item with me, talk about how you qualify. A lot of businesses qualify, but unfortunately, a lot of businesses are being promised employee retention credits that I don't think exist. My personal opinion, don't exist. So you don't want to take a credit that you aren't eligible for. It's a great opportunity for business. I didn't define it, but it's a great opportunity for businesses to put money back in if they were somehow affected by COVID, either some revenue effects or expense effects, or they were shut down by a government mandate. So just be cautious though if somebody's coming in and without even talking to you saying, "Hey, I got $200,000 that your refund's coming if you sign on the dotted line." Just be wary of that and make sure that you can support anything. That's my final note.
It's a good
Yep.
little nutshell to wrap up on. Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. I greatly appreciate it. I'm super excited for this episode, and yeah, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening today. This was a great episode, and I'm sure you will appreciate the tips and insights from today. If you want to connect further with our guests, you can find the contact information, social media links, etc., any of the freebies in the show notes from today's episode. Please show some love to our guests and like, follow, and subscribe their content if you connected with them. And also don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe Building Better Businesses with Catalyst Consulting. Also, if you drop a juicy review, that's always cool too.